camera. Give it off, down.
It's difficult to remember now, but there is something spectacularly unlikely about the Bourne identity when it came out in 2002. From director of Go and Swingers and starring the guy from Good Will Hunting, it seemed a long shot to be entertaining, let alone great. But after years of action movies being dominated by films like Charlie's Angels, Rush Hour 2, and Tomb Raider, America is ready for something a bit grittier and more grounded in reality in the post-9/11 era. And as it turns out, the Bourne identity filled that niche almost exactly. There are no cackling villains, glib one-liners, or over-the-top action sequences. It's a remarkably unsentimental action film, and one that's easily worthy of screen's Besties. Damon's performance as the amnesiac Bourne was perhaps not a revelation, as we knew he could be good, but he's still excellent in the role.
Je ne sais pas qui je suis.
The character is a difficult one to play well, and Damon has incredibly come across as both tremendously confused and capable of being decisive and forceful. The confusion, of course, stems from the fact that Bourne is found at the beginning of the film floating in the sea, 2 bullet holes in him, not knowing what his name is or where he's from.
God damn it, where am I?
Before he even has a chance to get his sea legs, he's returned to dry land, knowing only that he has a bank account in Switzerland to probe. From there, we quickly move to a discovery that Bourne is a CIA operative who tried and failed to kill a disposed African despot.
And all my friends out there, you will read about yourselves. Because if you want to play this game, after I've been reasonable, I will show you.
If I have a complaint about the film, it's that this revelation is given to the audience well before Bourne himself discovers it.
Park ist geschlossen, Sie können hier nicht schlafen.
Our ability to empathize with his confusion is muted a bit since we're privy to information that he doesn't possess.
I don't...
Ihre Papiere.
I don't have any papers. I lost meine Papiere. Ich habe sie verloren.
His failure has made him a target for his fellow assassins, but before we can even get into that level of back and forth, Bourne's encounter with the Swiss police leads to the first set piece of the film.
Hey, aufstehen, hoch!
His takeover of the US Embassy and eventual escape from same. It's a sequence that shows Bourne in what becomes his natural status throughout the film. A hunted man on the run from forces that are vastly more powerful than he, but resourceful enough to evade or overcome the obstacles before him. He's a killer, but we believe he's human and therefore mortal, which was a refreshing change after a decade of action films dominated by the likes of Michael Bay. Damon is great, but Doug Liman's direction and the script by Tony Gilroy also excel. Bourne is almost entirely clear of the action film tropes of the 90s, with precious little slow motion, a refreshing absence of gratuitous explosions, and a penchant for believably brutal fistfights over infant ammo gunplay. Damon comes across incredibly well, thanks to 3 months of training as a man who can switch from total confusion about his life to an almost robot-like machine when it comes time to take out his enemies. At times, you can almost see a switch flip in his head as his movements become incredibly efficient and everyone stops talking. That is perhaps my favorite way in which Liman avoids an action film cliche. Bourne and his opponents are trying to kill each other, and there's no time for snappy banter or back and forth on such an occasion. The fights are invariably mute affairs until the outcome has been decided and Bourne needs information.
Where is it?
All of that isn't to say that the script isn't sharp, with Bourne's early film speech outlining his capabilities being especially memorable.
I can tell you the license plate numbers of all 6 cars outside. I can tell you that our waitress is left-handed and the guy sitting up at the counter weighs 215 pounds and knows how to handle himself. I know the best place to look for a gun is the cab of the gray truck outside. And at this altitude, I can run flat out for a half mile before my hands start shaking. Now, why would I know that? How can I know that and not know who I am?
It also, for a film that came out the year after September 11, is remarkably unafraid to engage and criticize American foreign policy, and especially the CIA's well-documented track record of destabilizing foreign regimes.
He had an assignment. He failed. He obviously felt compelled to finish the task.
Most of that is missing from the Robert Ludlum novel that the movie is based on. Lyman reportedly modified much of the intelligence aspects of the film based on his father's work in the NSA during the Reagan years, with Chris Cooper's character apparently a bit of a stand-in for Oliver North.
You're U.S. government property. You're a malfunctioning $30 million weapon.
Also of note is the way the CIA is portrayed as being run by a few old guys and a bunch of 20-something neophytes, leading to the memorably odd casting of Julia Stiles as a station agent.
2 to 3 hours.
The political commentary isn't something you need to agree with or even be cognizant of to enjoy the film, though. I feel like I've been talking a lot about what the Bourne Identity isn't or how it differed from the films that came out in the years before it, but it stands alone as a ferociously entertaining movie with terrific action and a set-piece car chase that's certainly up there on any list of best film chase sequences. I think the story to the second film might be a bit more entertaining than that of Identity, but Identity still stands head and shoulders above its sequels, if only because it doesn't feature the maddening shaky cam styling of Paul Greengrass. It's a little sad that I'm praising a film because it actually lets us see what the hell's going on in its fight sequences, but after a decade of films that looked like they were shot by someone with Parkinson's, going back to the original film in the trilogy is almost refreshing. All in all, the Bourne Identity was the herald of less stylized and more gritty action films to come in the decade. From Lyman's own work on Mr. and Mrs. Smith, to Christopher Nolan's Batman films, to even Casino Royale, which took the lessons of Bourne and recast James Bond as a more grounded spy for the 21st century. Even without those influences, though, the movie still stands on its own as a sterling character piece, with fantastic performances from practically everyone involved, especially Brian Cox and Chris Cooper as Bourne's duplicitous former spy runners.
Come on, it only goes two ways, Jason. Either you come in and let us make this right, or we're gonna have to keep going until we're satisfied.
You mean until you kill me?
It's a movie that came out of left field, but firmly established itself as a classic upon release. While there may be more Damon-less Bourne movies coming our way in the future, the original film will, for the moment, stand alone as a screened bestie.
I can tell you the license plate numbers of all 6 cars outside. I can tell you that our waitress is left-handed and the guy sitting up at the counter weighs 215 pounds and knows how to handle himself. I know the best place to look for a gun is the cab of the gray truck outside. And at this altitude, I can run flat out for a half mile before my hands start shaking. Now, why would I know that?